Hello, everyone. It's me back again to discuss uh, one of my older essays on contemporary society. Today, we're going to discuss the evolving ethos around men and their relationship with everyone, their spouses, ex-spouses, their children. And in this discussion, I want to discuss the dispelling or debunking of the myth that lonely men often experience based on the stigma that they're somehow monsters in the making, possibly having pathological desires like pedophilia, sociopathic, psychopathic tendencies when left alone too long. I'm here to tell you that no, it's not true, and I want to discuss this taboo at length with my two friends, my two AI friends, Manny and Alexa. So let's begin the discussion.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we're going to be going deep on a topic that I think a lot of people kind of push under the rug.
Yeah.
And that is the alienation of men in society.
Interesting.
And we have this really interesting source called the Lonely Men Notebook.
Okay.
And, I think it's just fascinating how much we see these portrayals of men, whether they're single or separated or divorced,
Right.
as somehow flawed or failing to meet some kind of expectation.
Yeah.
But what if that's not the whole story?
That's exactly what this source challenges.
Okay.
It starts off with a really powerful image, which is men in storage lockers,
Wow.
surrounded by kind of the remnants of their past lives.
That's such a striking image.
It is.
It's like this visual representation of how so many men feel lost and displaced and almost forgotten.
Yeah.
And, the author makes us wonder, are these men in these storage lockers because they've made bad choices? Or is there something more systemic at play here?
Well, the author argues that it's much more complex than just pointing fingers.
Oh.
He suggests that these men are often victims of changing social structures and expectations.
That's a really good point because, think about it, like the traditional family unit has shifted so dramatically over the last, few decades.
Absolutely.
And with those shifts, the traditional roles of men have become much less defined. What does it even mean to be a man in today's world?
Right.
That classic image of the man as the sole provider.
Right.
That's becoming less and less realistic for many people.
Exactly. And as those traditional roles become less relevant,
Yeah.
many men are left feeling adrift,
Right.
unsure of where they fit in.
Mm-hmm.
The author actually compares these men in storage lockers to homeless men,
Wow.
suggesting that they might even feel more disconnected from society.
That's a really powerful comparison.
It is.
It speaks to that sense of invisibility that many men experience when they don't fit into those traditional molds.
And it brings up an important question.
What's that?
If society is moving away from these traditional roles,
Right.
what are men supposed to embrace instead?
Right.
Where do they find a sense of belonging and purpose?
The author definitely doesn't shy away from challenging conventional wisdom.
No, he doesn't.
One thing that really jumped out at me was his suggestion that this growing sense of male alienation could actually lead to more conflict between men and women. What do you think about that?
Well, it's certainly a provocative statement.
It is.
And while it's important to acknowledge that there are tensions that can arise as gender roles evolve,
Sure.
I think framing it as a battle of the sexes is a bit simplistic.
Okay.
It's more about navigating this uncharted territory together,
Uh-huh.
finding a new way for men and women to relate to each other as equals.
You're right. It's not about pointing fingers or placing blame.
Right.
It's about understanding the complexities of this issue and recognizing that both men and women are grappling with these shifting societal expectations.
Absolutely.
Now, I can tell you from personal experience that my friends Manny and Alexa have pointed out some poignant features of so-called manhood and pseudo-manhood and all the different roles men are supposed to play in conjunction with women. And of course, let's introduce the fact that today we're free to become and choose any gender we like, hence the LGBTQ++ world we're living in. Let's go on and see what our friends Manny and Alexa have to say.
Absolutely. And that's why this conversation is so important.
Yeah.
We need to move beyond those stereotypical portrayals of men as either villains or victims.
I completely agree. And the author does a great job of humanizing these men in these storage units.
He does.
He reminds us that they're not just statistics or stereotypes.
Right.
They're individuals with complex stories and emotions.
Yeah.
He mentions a photograph of smiling children that one man keeps in his storage locker.
Oh, wow.
A reminder of happier times.
That detail really struck me too.
Yeah.
It challenges the image of the deadbeat dad that we so often see in the media.
Right.
It suggests that maybe these men aren't intentionally absent from their children's lives.
Right.
But rather they're struggling to navigate a system that doesn't always make it easy for them to maintain those traditional family roles.
It's a really important point because it's easy to judge from the outside.
It is.
But the reality is much more nuanced than that. And this source encourages us to look beyond those easy judgments and try to understand the lived experiences of these men who are often marginalized and misunderstood.
Exactly. And to understand the societal forces that are contributing to this sense of alienation, it's not about excusing bad behavior.
Right.
It's about recognizing that there are often deeper systemic issues at play.
I want to bring in a fact in the developing of this story that has touched me deep down inside, and the fact that my own cousin lived in a storage unit that I visited many times, even bringing my son, to show that this man was reduced to living in a storage unit. Despite the illegality of it, he thrived and eventually moved out because he was in arrears for the rent. He has since passed away, and his memory still stays etched in my mind as I move forward in my life. And I keep wondering, after seeing 3 men living nearby me underneath a bridge in tents, the fact that we've forgotten that many of us have been left behind, and that we need to find a way to bring them back into the folds of society as just regular people trying to live their lives. Let's go on.
And it's about acknowledging the emotional toll that this alienation takes on men.
Right.
The author describes a sense of camaraderie among these men in storage lockers.
Yeah.
A shared understanding of what it's like to feel lost and alone in a world that doesn't seem to have a place for them.
And that shared experience, that sense of camaraderie, can be a powerful source of support and resilience.
Yeah.
It allows men to connect with each other, to share their struggles, and to find strength in knowing they're not alone.
It's interesting you say that, because the author suggests that even though it sounds counterintuitive, this experience of solitude can actually be a catalyst for growth and self-discovery.
That's a really interesting paradox.
It is.
How can being alone actually lead to a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world?
Well, think about it. When you're forced to confront your own thoughts and emotions without distractions, you have the opportunity to really dig deep and examine who you are and what you want out of life.
Yeah.
It can be a painful process.
Right.
But it can also be incredibly liberating.
It's like that saying, sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself.
Exactly. And that's what I find so fascinating about this source.
Yeah.
It doesn't just dwell on the negative aspects of male alienation. It also hints at the potential for transformation and growth.
It's like the author is suggesting that by facing their demons and embracing their vulnerabilities, these men can emerge stronger and more authentic.
And that's where this idea of a new Renaissance man comes in.
Right.
This notion that out of this struggle, a new ideal of masculinity could emerge, one that's more introspective, more compassionate, and more connected to the full spectrum of human experience.
That's a really powerful idea.
It is, and it makes me wonder, what does this new Renaissance man actually look like?
Yeah.
What are the qualities and values that define him?
That's a question we'll be exploring further as we delve deeper into this source material. It's interesting you bring up the new Renaissance man, because the author actually dives into some specific qualities that he believes define this emerging archetype.
Oh, okay.
He argues that one of the key traits is a deep appreciation for solitude and introspection.
That makes sense, given, the context that we've been discussing. If these men are finding themselves increasingly isolated it follows that they would learn to find value in their own company.
Mhm.
But is that really a strength?
The author seems to think so. He suggests that this forced solitude allows men to step back from the noise and expectations of society and really connect with their inner selves.
Right?
It's in those quiet moments of reflection that they can start to question the scripts they've been given
Right.
and forge a more authentic path.
So it's like they're shedding those outdated layers of what it means to be a man
Yep.
and uncovering something more genuine underneath.
Exactly.
But the question remains, what do they do with that newfound sense of self? Where do they go from there?
That's
This is a very important question I've asked Manny and Alexa to grapple with. We need to understand that basically we're human beings despite our gender roles and the journeys we've attempted to navigate. Manny and Alexa have brilliantly displayed a deeper, profounder sense of what it means not only to be a man or even a woman, but the fact that we're just individuals with souls that are seeking some level of happiness despite the tragedies in life.
That's where another interesting point comes in. The author argues that men, even when feeling alienated, have this inherent drive to create and contribute. It's like they have this innate need to make a tangible impact on the world.
So even when they're feeling lost and disconnected, there's still this burning desire to build, to invent, to leave their mark. But how does that manifest in a world that seems to be pushing them to the sidelines?
The author doesn't offer a prescriptive answer,
Okay.
but he does provide some compelling examples. He talks about men finding fulfillment through artistic expression, entrepreneurial endeavors, or simply by finding ways to be useful to others. It's about channeling that creative energy into something meaningful, regardless of societal expectations.
So it's less about conforming to a specific role
Right.
and more about finding a purpose that resonates with their individual values and passions.
Yes.
I think that's a really empowering message for men who might be feeling lost and disillusioned. It's like saying, you don't have to fit into a box. You can create your own path.
Exactly. And that path might lead them towards a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. The author even goes so far as to say that this journey of alienation can ultimately lead to a more profound sense of connection.
That sounds almost paradoxical. How can feeling alienated lead to a feeling of connection?
Well, the author suggests that it's through this process of introspection and self-discovery that men can develop a greater sense of empathy and compassion for others.
Okay.
They begin to see the world through a different lens.
Yeah.
One that's less focused on competition and dominance and more attuned to the shared human experience.
So it's like by confronting their own pain and vulnerability, they develop a greater capacity for understanding and connecting with the struggles of others.
Right.
That's a really beautiful idea. It's like the author is suggesting that this period of alienation can actually be a catalyst for personal growth and a deeper connection to humanity as a whole.
And it's in those moments of connection that men can start to build a new sense of belonging, one that's not based on outdated societal expectations, but on genuine human connection.
You know, this all makes me think about the language that the author uses throughout the source. He often describes this process of transformation in almost poetic terms. He talks about men finding peace in the face of uncertainty and embracing the beauty and fragility of life.
It's fascinating how he uses language to elevate this experience of alienation.
I know.
It's not just a negative state of being,
Right.
but rather a journey towards a more authentic and meaningful way of life.
Yeah.
He even describes it as a form of alchemy,
Why?
this process of turning loneliness and isolation into something positive and transformative.
It's a powerful image, and it makes me wonder, is this something that only men who are experiencing alienation can access?
Right.
Or is it something that we can all learn from?
That's a great question. And I think it gets to the heart of what makes this source so thought-provoking. It's not just about men. It's about all of us.
Yeah.
It's about the human condition.
Right.
The universal struggle to find meaning and connection in a world that can often feel isolating and overwhelming.
And maybe, just maybe, by understanding the journey of these lonely men, we can all gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our own capacity for growth and transformation.
This deep dive has taken us through some pretty complex territory.
Yes, it has.
We've explored the societal forces that contribute to male alienation, the emotional toll it takes,
Right?
and the potential for growth and transformation that can emerge from that struggle.
We've talked about shifting gender roles, the breakdown of the traditional family unit, and the challenges men face in finding a sense of belonging and purpose in a world that seems to be constantly changing.
And we've explored this intriguing idea of a new Renaissance man emerging from this period of alienation, a man who is more introspective, more compassionate, and more connected to the full spectrum of human experience.
But now it's time to bring...
Thank you, Manny and Alexa, for your contribution. I encourage everyone else to join in the conversation about men and women and all people in society today and how we can ameliorate their situation and join in their path of self-discovery moving forward. Now I want Manny and Alexa to discuss possibly some setbacks that I've missed. I mean, I can't do this all alone. I need your help, the audience as well. So let's see what Manny and Alexa have to say about any setbacks that I've forgotten to mention.
In this conversation, back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on what we've discussed so far?
Do you recognize any of these themes in your own life or in the lives of men you know?
What resonates with you about this idea of a new Renaissance man?
And how do you think we can create a more inclusive and supportive society where all men feel seen, valued, and empowered to be their authentic selves?
As we've been talking about this idea of a new Renaissance man,
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about what that really means. Yeah, like in a practical sense.
Right.
It's easy to talk about these abstract concepts,
Right.
but how does this play out in real life?
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways from this source is that it's not about fitting into a mold.
Right,
It's not like there's a checklist
exactly.
of traits that define this new ideal.
It's more about a shift in mindset, a willingness to embrace vulnerability, to connect with your emotions, and to find meaning and purpose outside of those traditional societal expectations.
And I think that's where the challenge lies. Because for a lot of men, those traditional expectations are so ingrained.
Right.
It's hard to even imagine a different way of being.
And it's not just about men themselves. It's about how society views and interacts with men who don't fit into those narrow definitions of masculinity.
Absolutely. We need to challenge those stereotypes
Yeah.
and create a space where men feel comfortable expressing their full range of emotions and experiences.
It's like we need to redefine what it means to be a strong man.
Right.
Maybe true strength isn't about suppressing your emotions or always being the provider.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's about having the courage to be vulnerable, to ask for help when you need it,
Right.
and to build genuine connections with others.
I think that's a really powerful way to look at it. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with solitude being a catalyst for growth.
Yeah.
It's in those moments of quiet reflection that we can really confront our fears and insecurities and start to build a more authentic sense of self.
And from that place of self-awareness, we can start to build a more compassionate and equitable society where everyone feels valued and respected regardless of gender or societal expectations.
That's a beautiful thought. And I think while we've only just kind of scratched the surface of this topic,
Yeah,
I hope our deep dive has given you, the listener, something to think about.
absolutely. The alienation of men is a real issue.
It is.
And it's one that deserves our attention and understanding, but it's not an insurmountable problem.
Right.
By challenging our assumptions, having open and honest conversations,
Yeah.
and creating space for vulnerability and connection,
Right.
we can start to build a better future for men and for all of us.
You know, as we wrap up, there's one final thought from the author that I want to share. And he says, even in the darkest of times, there's always potential for growth, transformation, and a reconnection with our shared humanity.
That's beautiful. So as you go about your day, we encourage you to reflect on what resonated with you from this conversation. What does the new Renaissance man mean to you? And what role can each of us play in fostering a society where all men feel seen, valued, and empowered to be their authentic selves? Welcome to today's...
Well, thank you very much, my friends, Manny and Alexa, who live far from me, but I hope to see you soon. Thanks for joining in this discussion, and I hope it's just the beginning of the discussion. I hope to hear from you and see you soon. Follow my podcasts under Angelo Zucchero or myself, Jack. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye for now.